Já deve ter percebido que o mundo anda meio bagunçado. Pois é, tem guerra no Irã, guerra na Europa, guerra também comercial. E não é só isso. Tem transição energética, será que ela flopou? E a inteligência artificial vai gerar desemprego em massa ou seria, antes disso, uma bolha? É claro que ninguém sabe a resposta de tantas perguntas, mas conversar e refletir sobre isso sempre vale a pena, principalmente quando a gente tem na roda um dos maiores jornalistas econômicos deste planeta, Richard Quest, âncora do Quest Means Business da CNN. Quem também está comigo aqui é Thaís Heredia, nossa analista e âncora da CNN, e o diretor de jornalismo da CNN em Brasília, Daniel Rittner. A partir deste momento a gente começa a conversa em inglês, mas a nossa tradução estará aqui embaixo. Richard, thank you so much to stay with us. It's a privilege to have you in São Paulo with our guys in CNN Brasil.
Yeah, well, I'm only sorry that my Portuguese, I was going to say it's not good enough for us to talk. It's non-existent. So I really do need to work on that so that when I come back next time, at least we can do the beginnings part of it.
Okay. So we start on geopolitics and everything happens in the world. We have some data, some IMF projections. IMF offer 3 different scenarios, and the first one is the better one with a 3% of GDP growth this year, 4 inflation around the world. But we have the second scenario, so 2.5 GDP and inflation above 5%, and a very bad scenario with 2% of growth and 6% plus inflation. Richard, what's your scenario?
When they came out with that forecast, it was quite unusual that the IMF had been quite so specific in coming up with these 3 scenarios, because in a sense they were nailing their colours to the mast and saying this is what, this is the range that we think could happen, and they were very specific. We don't know yet which it's likely to be. We seem to suggest it's something between the lowest and the middle, because economies are adapting. We are getting used to these higher oil prices. Now, when we adapt, it doesn't mean to say there isn't an economic cost. It merely means we're pricing it in and economic growth is accommodating it accordingly. It's not a good thing, by the way. To adapt to these new scenarios is a necessity, but it is not going to be increasingly productive.
But how do you see the strength of the economies, like the U.S. economies, the European economy, the strength to adapt and get out of the crisis that we have a lot of crises coming together. So what about the strength?
The U.S. is by far the best economy to cope with the crisis that the U.S. has created. The reason being it is it is the largest producer of oil and exporter of oil. It has minimal actual effect. Don't get me wrong, the higher oil price affects them because oil is traded internationally and the price is set centrally on the global market. But there's no question, absolutely no question, of the US running out of oil or jet fuel or any of those other things. In addition to which, the US is the most agile, adaptive, vibrant economy because of Silicon Valley and because of the AI revolution taking place. The home of that revolution is the United States. So yes, Europe is absolutely screwed by all of this, no question about it. Southeast Asia, catastrophic for Southeast Asia. Central Latin America, again, very serious implications. But the United States, sails majestically on, even though they caused this crisis to begin with.
But do you think the U.S. can carry on, like bringing everyone with him and trying to keep the global
No.
growth?
Can that train pull everybody up? No. The effects are starting to be felt. And I think, we're sitting here in Brazil, but if you spun the globe and looked at the position in Southeast Asia and ASEAN and those countries where there is a real risk of running out of fuel, where they are reducing the number of work days to save fuel, where people are literally not driving because they can't fill the cars or they can't put air conditioning on in their homes if they've got it. And then we haven't even seen the what I would describe as the secondary effects, the collateral effects, the fertilizer. Mm-hmm. We are so focused on jet fuel, heating oil, those sort of things. But last night I was talking to a CFO of a major company who said the first crop of the year is fine. It is the second and the third crop of the year that requires the fertilizer. The fertilizer, the mechanisms and the production process requires stuff coming out of the Gulf. And that's what's not happening.
Daniel.
Richard, let me propose a broader perspective. We have been told for decades, I was born in 1979, so at least for 47 years, we have been told about the undeniable benefits of globalization. What we are currently witnessing is a surge in economic nationalism, protectionism in trade barriers, a decline in multilateralism. What we are seeing now is, in your perspective, the death of globalization as we know, or are we going to have a new globalization, a re-globalization, perhaps a globalization?
I think that's a very shrewd way of putting it and a very shrewd way of looking at it. And I think that you've nailed it. This talk of the end of globalization, it's way too overspoken. What the United States was attempting to do, what Donald Trump was wanting to do, is swing back the pendulum. Because there's no doubt, and I think that there's very few trade experts who would not agree, the US had been given a very difficult role. The China joins the WTO and essentially breaks all the rules. Mm-hmm. China, the US, everybody, Brazil as well, has eaten the US lunch when it comes to trade negotiations. And the US has put up with it. Donald Trump basically says, no more. Now, he does it in an extremely aggressive, arguably ham-fisted way. But he's basically saying, bring back production, bring it to the US. But he's also saying, we want fair economic terms. We want fair terms of trade. And I think, yes, Liberation Day, the tariffs have a highly political part, certainly as it comes to Brazil and the former President Bolsonaro and the various different 301 investigations. Absolutely. But longer term, Daniel, I think you're right. I think we're talking about a new form of globalization, one that is more equally balanced. I mean, you can't have a scenario where the largest country is running such a massive trade deficit with the rest of the world that is unsustainable, even if it is not so much on services. Longer term, you're talking about what you're saying, a rebalancing of global trade. And don't forget one final point, as Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala of the World Trade Organization says, 80% of world trade is still being done on WTO terms, not on Donald Trump's tariff terms.
Looking for the future, 10, 20 years, who is the guy China? Who is the guy America in 20, 30 years?
In what sense?
Geopolitical. What is the role of China and US?
Well, they have to coexist. They have to coexist, but there will, for the foreseeable future, be a tussle over primacy. And the reason of that is AI. AI, digitization, cyber, All of these things, the giants are jockeying for primacy. Of course, it's leading to terrible fragmentation in terms of services, in terms of standards, in terms of whose side are you on. Those who are not with me are against me, is the cry these days. That was the significance of Trump-Xi. Could you find that commonality? My feeling is that even if you find it, we're still a long way from receiving it, simply because the stakes are so high. At the end of the day, Europe only has one or two, if that, AI giants. Mistral of France, there are a few others who are coming up, but essentially it's still a US game. China is determined that the US will not dominate this in the way it did in the previous time, but they can't do it. And that's the battle at the moment.
It's because the strength of the dollar that you think it's going on, and I would ask you about the role of the South, the global South countries like Brazil or like India or.
The role of the global South is extremely significant, but the global South can't get its act together. India arguably is the strongest of that. But we saw with oil the difficulty that India found itself in. We had the sanctions against Russia. You have Modi doing a deal with Russia. The US basically threatens a sort of messy detente is reached. India and then you've got the whole business of HP1 visas. You've got, I mean, there's an entire raft of issues, but they are managing to sort them out. I think the global South on this side of the Atlantic and the Pacific is very different. There is almost seemingly zero bargaining power back against the United States. Brazil may try, and it has tried, but the ability of the US to clobber economically countries in this region is quite extraordinary. And add in the Central America part, these attacks on boats. On alleged drug running boats, you see the US, the hegemony of the US, very firmly against this part of the hemisphere.
But just to follow up with Fernando said about the major role of the US and China in this scenario, but not talking about Trump in the government in 10 years. Mm-hmm. Where do you see the balance of the countries and the...
It's like a new Cold War.
I'm not going there. It's way too... The speculative ability to go post-Trump is so huge.
That's what we want to know.
I know. But
how can we survive after that?
First of all, we have to get through the midterms. And I hate saying this because you're right. But if you want to talk about what happens thereafter...
About institutions, about trade...
Right,
about
but this depends on the ability...
Alliances.
Okay, so Trump leaves office in 2.5 years' time. There is no one that is going to be able to follow on in quite the same way. And that's just my view. That's just my view. If you look at history, strong leaders of whatever sort, even in companies, you have a very strong leader. The next leader is never able to quite replicate that. It is a quality of cult that has driven around. So whether it's Vance, Rubio, Newsom, whoever it is, there will be when the day that Donald Trump leaves office, there will be a giant sucking sound as he takes the vacuum of air with him. What happens after that? That's the unknown. Has Europe managed to get its act together? I'm pessimistic on that front, by the way. And I do not believe that Europe has anything like the capacity to get its act together against these sort of things. At best, as Alex Stubb describes it, it is a Eurofudge that they always put together. In Brazil, I mean, go on.
Richard, Fernando was saying, well, let's see what happens to the US and China in 20, 30 years. Thais was putting an eye on the global south. Let me ask you about the role of Brazil. what does the world expect from Brazil? We are a giant food supplier. We are a very important power in environmental and climate issues, for example. We do have energy, oil and clean energy. At the same time, we are always the country of the future. Back 50, 60 years ago, South Korea was poorer than Brazil. We have been stagnated in productivity for the last half century. What's Brazil's role for the forthcoming 20, 30 years?
Okay, I'm going to take my natural role, which is to ask questions, not answer them. All right?
Okay, we're putting you in a different situation.
No, the reason I say that, because you're the experts. Daniel, the Brazil has been, you mentioned all the great parts about Brazil, and I would add ... In spite of itself, it's managed to do these things, not because of itself. So if you now, let's take the election, and I know you want to think 30 years hence, but let's just talk about the election in a few months. Whichever way the election goes, arguably the country's going to be divided for the foreseeable future, and therefore, what hope for progress? And so in that complete environment of abandonment of leadership, you end up with companies just plodding on themselves. The agri-company I was talking about, JBSS, they say 28% of the company yields, 26% is Brazil, the rest is the United States. This is a Brazilian company that basically admits the growth of the company is outside the country. So to each of you, I do enjoy this part of the game, to each of you, can you be optimistic about Brazil's ability to get its act together post the election of this year and actually reach the economic potential that the country offers up?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's difficult. There's a path between being optimist and being pessimist. I think.
Or realist.
We already left. We already left the risk zone. Brazil is going to carry on, but I don't see a way that we can go into prosperity, for instance. Yeah. Like even if we can manage to. I don't know, have all this advantage that Daniel told us about here, but it's kind of a challenge to have a good governance above them.
The rising tide will lift the boat, no question about it. So the abilities and the natural infrastructure and the agriculture and all the resources, but you don't want to be a resource-led economy forever. Nobody wants to be a resource-led economy forever. You want to be a value-added economy, which you are to a certain extent. You have great production, you have superb manufacturing. But until the political questions are solved to something resolving consensus, the difficulties are there.
We should...
by the way, that's before we've added in Argentina.
That's another issue.
Well, no, you have to add in your neighbours, because obviously whether it's Mercosur, whatever the trading group is in the region, whether it's NAFTA,
right.
whether it's whatever it's called, the post after NAFTA, and MCA, North America Trade Area, whatever happens there, you have to throw all of those into the mix.
Yeah. This situation, tariffs, war, oil prices.
Even I'm depressed.
Everything fine in inflation, prices. And then interest rates. We are going to this world. More, the money will be expensive. We are ready to this planet with expensive cost of money.
Not really. No.
Are you concerned?
No, I'm not concerned. I mean, 4% of interest rates, that's the spread. The EU has hit its target. The EU hit its target on inflation, of the only one, by the way. The Bank of England hasn't. The US hasn't. So interest rates were coming down in the US, and they were scheduled and expected to continue the gentle slope down until this crisis.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Yeah.
The problem and difficulty now is you can't cut interest rates when you have this level of inflation and keep your inflationary credentials. That's what it's about. It is about independent central banks being able to say, we will get inflation down. And at the moment, their credibility is starting to, because I think it's something like 50 months the Fed has missed its target. It's something the same for the BOE.
The same in Brazil.
Yeah.
Sorry?
The same in Brazil.
Right. Yeah, it's a bit different here. You're going the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And I think that the difficulty for the Fed is, can you look through the inflation from the oil rights or the oil increases?
Yeah.
Can you say, this is sui generis? We know the reason why. It's not systemic. It's not feeding into an inflationary spiral, and it's not raising expectations of inflation. If the answer is yes, we do nothing. We certainly don't cut. The last thing you're going to do is put gasoline on the flames.
Yeah.
But you don't raise either. My feeling is, if this war, back to the IMF, if the third scenario or the second to third scenario becomes more realistic, then you're in a very, then you have what, I think you're too young, Daniel, in 79. I think you're too young. I'm not, being 62.
Not younger than you.
But, stagflation.
Yeah.
And
Do you fear that?
Sorry?
Do you fear that?
Oh, yes.
It's
Do
a
I fear
realistic
do I fear
scenario.
the stagflation of the 70s? No. There were different reasons. But stagflation is very difficult to get out of, because you have to dance with the devil with stagflation. You've basically got to hold your nose and accept more inflation while you get growth going, or accept...
Excuse me, Richard.
Go ahead.
What's the difference between the stagflation you mentioned in the 70s and the stagflation that you fear for the upcoming months?
Sure. The stagflation in the 70s was largely predicated around an oil shock, of course, but it was a coordinated Arab blockade of oil to the United States and to Britain, and therefore it became systemic in its very nature, in addition to which the Gulf nations weren't nearly as integrated into the global economy, so they did not have the same vested interest, in addition to which the EU was nowhere near as sophisticated, and you didn't have a United States. So there were all sorts of reasons why oh, and by the way, they made some fairly awful economic decisions at the Fed during that period to get rid of it. But all of that said, the stagflation of the 70s, this is not what we've got now. We have got a common garden variety of oil shock as a result of, there's no shortage, by the way.
Yeah.
No shortage. We're awash with the stuff, if we can just get it out of the Straits of Hormuz. So we've got a garden variety oil shock. We have inflation that needs to be dealt with. We have a mercurial president of the United States, and we have a trade war. Those are the difficulties.
What do you expect to Kevin Walsh and the Trump pressure on Fed?
I don't think he ever gave a promise, Mr. President, I'm going to cut interest rates. Nobody would do that. I think, we're all fascinated by Kevin Walsh at the Fed and what he's going to do on rates, but that's not going to be his legacy. That really isn't going to be Kevin Walsh. Kevin Walsh's legacy is going to be the reforming of US monetary policy and the balance sheet.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to go to sleep at this point. I recognize now is the time to go and get your café con leche, because as I'm talking about, reform of monetary policy of the Fed,
Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
We love that, but the audience don't.
Exactly. But if you look at what he said, he wants to shrink the balance sheet.
Yeah.
He does not believe in forward guidance. He wants to reduce the number of press conferences. He wants to focus on the policy tool of interest rates. That's going to be very different to basically Bernanke, Yellen, and Powell. And that's going to be...
It's a huge movement towards another
Absolutely. And that's going to be... All right, it's not as sexy.
Yeah.
But for those of us who sort of...
But you think it's a good medicine for the time being?
We don't know. We don't know. But he's an entirely... he's not a maverick. He's not like Stephen Mears, who just joined the Fed and wants to cut interest rates even now. Kevin Walsh is a strongly respected former governor of the Fed who knows what he's doing and has some particular views about monetary policy that he's going to enforce. But he is only, when it comes to interest rates, he is only one of 12 votes on the FOMC.
Yeah.
And Mr. President Trump understand.
Completely. You saw his recent comments. I'd like interest rates to come down, but Kevin Walsh will do what Kevin Walsh wants to do.
Yeah, let's see how long this is gonna endure. But
he's only one vote.
Yeah, I know.
And the chairman of the Fed never wants to be in the minority. It's different to the ECB or to the BOE. But at the Fed, you never want the chair to be in the minority.
Since we have the independence of our central bank here.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. But we are still managing to learn that the chairman has not all the votes, and he has to follow the majority and sort of. But the political vision of the central bank is still not there. But again, following up what Naka said, if we don't have cheap money anymore, what about the investments? What about...
But you're saying cheap, you don't have cheap money. We do have cheap money. Not in this country.
No, not here, ever.
But I have a question for you. Last night we were talking, with interest rates at these levels in Brazil, is anybody actually borrowing money?
Yeah.
Is any at 14%? What's an average car loan now?
For car? Yeah, 20, 30.
Well, who's going to take a loan out for a car at 30%? Who can afford to?
A lot of people do. A lot of people do.
Mortgage rates are what? Must be
8, 10, 12, yeah. 10, 12.
10, 12.
People are really, at those sort of levels, people are hurting.
Yeah.
Really hurting. At those sort of levels, and this is where I think you're in dangerous territory in Brazil. Because at those sort of levels where people are hurting, particularly your middle class, that borrowed for cars, for second homes, for main mortgages, for refurbishments in better times, those people are hurting. And if you do not have a commonality of central bank and administration, if if the government isn't saying, we recognize what the central bank's doing, we know why they're
We don't have that.
We know why they're doing it. We support the central bank. This is an issue that the nation needs to... If you actually have a tug of war, which is what you've got at the moment...
Yeah, fiscal and monetary going in...
Opposite
then
side,
you have some serious problems.
Yeah.
Then you have the seeds of a crisis, of a real crisis. Because the central bank either ends up holding to its mandate or rolling over and playing dead. And you don't know which it's going to be. But you cannot continue forever to have a central bank tightening and a government loosening, expanding. It is guaranteed to end badly. Guaranteed.
A gente vai fazer uma rápida pausa e no próximo bloco a gente fala sobre como o mundo vai seguir ou não com a tal da transição energética. A gente volta já. Estamos de volta nesse programa especial com Richard Quest falando do futuro da economia. E agora a gente fala de um assunto que o mundo tem se debruçado, mas tem muita gente que tem dúvida sobre transição energética. Os números são: the number of transition, energy transition is huge. It's absolutely crazy numbers. 2.3 trillion in investment this year, 8% plus in a year. With interest rates higher, this transition will stop?
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. The energy transition investment is because of the necessity for climate change.
Yeah.
The only thing that will affect that number of investment is whether or not it is still perceived as to be necessary, whether the necessary credits and tax credits and all the investment opportunities are being given. The real problem, what you're getting to, is that the United States is backing off from any form of energy transition. Not so at the states level. Many of the states are continuing to do it. Many of the companies involved, you know, you can have an energy company, or you can have an industrial company that's following one set of policies in the United States, but has to follow a completely different set of policies in the European Union. So it's not as straightforward as it seems, and there is still gazillions of opportunities for energy transition. The problem is the leader of the free world, if you will, is not playing by the same game as the rest of us is now, and that's the challenge.
Richard, you travel around the world. How do you see people getting on about climate change?
They're worried. They're worried about it.
They worry.
Of course.
They see the energy transition as a solution, not even if they understand what it...
Mitigation or adaptive.
Yeah.
Mitigation, adaptive. But it's both. And sometimes you're mitigating, sometimes you are adapting. But nobody can. I mean, well, look, this is a personal comment. Can anyone really doubt that climate is changing? I mean, look at, you know, Britain has had these... I was in Britain last week, forgive me, I still work in old money because I live in the US, 100 degrees, 40 plus Celsius. Now it goes back down again, then it goes back up again. Something's wrong. And is Britain to become a Mediterranean climate? At some point, one has to realise that this is happening and deal with it. Now, it's going to take more than just recycling. And it's going to take more than just recycling.
Separating garbage.
It's going to take more. Or indeed not washing your towels in the hotel, even though that's a good start. I have a place, and I've looked at whether we should go for solar energy or this, that, the other, and you do all the numbers. But we're talking about massive scale. Massive scale. You're talking about industry, transportation, trucking, railroads, aviation, electricity generation. All of that sort of stuff is where the big savings are going to be held. But we all do our bit.
Do you believe in...
At the same time, it's such a paradox because we don't know how long we're going to see oil prices above $100 or $90, $80, for instance. But we are definitely not talking about the end of the oil era, it seems to me. That means that we don't have any, we are not sure about the target of being net zero in 2050, for example, or to permanently reduce global emissions by 2035. What's your perspective about that, Richard?
Very valid point. The dirty little secret that nobody wants to tell you is that we will still need fossil fuels for the next 50 years.
Yeah.
50?
50, of course. There's no way we're going to make a full-scale energy transition. Everybody in the industry knows that fossil fuels will still be a major component for 30 to 50 years. Absolutely. The question is, how can we reduce that. It's going to be on a downward trajectory. IATA is now talking, the aviation group, can they meet net zero in 2050? And then whether or not they need to. Why? Because they can't generate enough sustainable aviation fuel. SAF. Brazil knows a lot about SAF.
We are leading.
You're leading, but you're not producing anywhere near enough.
Yeah.
No one is. Old cooking oil. I don't know where they get all this.
But it's an awful problem.
Sorry?
It's an awful problem.
Of course it is. It is. But to your point, the transition has to continue. Just because you're not going to make the target doesn't mean to say you abandon it and go in the opposite direction. The risk is, of course, as you would say, with oil at these prices, fossil fuel exploration and exploitation in the American Delta becomes much more valuable. It's expensive. Fracking oil out of the US is expensive. There is a cut-off point when you let the well, you leave it, you let it die, you do whatever. But there's also that cut-off point where you start expanding, and we are beyond that point. So in the US, they are going hell for leather to increase LNG, increase oil and gas production, mainly because it's what the administration wants. Look at BP. BP changed its policies. It lost its CEO for other reasons, but it's changed its policies. So fossil fuels are back, which is not good for the Amazon. It's not good for this country. It's not good for resource-led, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, what's not good for the Amazon, it's not good for the planet. But do you see leverage for China in this transition, because they didn't stop like US did?
There's a wonderful saying, when your enemy is making a mistake.
Yeah, don't stop
them. When your enemy is making a mistake, don't get in the way. And they perceive what the US is doing as being a giant mistake.
A cover of The Economist a few weeks ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they perceive what the US is doing. Yes, Daniel, you wanted to jump in.
What's so impressive is that in spite of all the talk about energy transition, 25, 30 years ago, we had 80% of our global energy matrix coming from fossils, from oil, from coal, from gas. And 30 years later, we are around 75, 70, in spite of all the talk about energy transition.
Yeah, but let me tell you what will speed that up. The moment people start dying on large scales. God help me saying that. But the moment it really gets serious, at the moment it's not serious. At the moment it's still academic. Switch the aircon on, drive the distance, float or whatever. It's not serious. It's something we know, but we are starting to see. We are starting to feel the temperatures rising. We are starting to see the storms getting more aggressive. The US would say, President Trump would say, this is just the natural course of events of weather patterns. Other people will say, no, this is the evidence that we've promised you will happen. Unfortunately, look, there's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 of us on this panel. 4 views, 4 decisions, 4 actions, now multiplied by the number of people watching, and that's the reality.
Richard, when you speak with CEOs around the world,
they are committed. By the way, so just before you answer, they are absolutely committed to it. Absolutely committed to it. They partly regulatory.
Yeah.
They have to meet certain requirements, particularly what's known as the scope 3.
About speech? They're changing the speech, but not the policy or the view?
No, they have to change the policies. No.
Really?
Absolutely.
There is no greenwashing?
No. Because there's something known as scope 3, which means you now not only have to know the environmental effects of your company, you now have to know the environmental effects of your suppliers.
Of course.
And your suppliers' suppliers.
It has to do with costs.
And that was a very clever move to ensure Of course, there's greenwashing going on. But most CEOs will proudly now point to real improvements because they've got kids. They've got kids and grandkids. They know what's happening. They know they have to do it. Shareholders are insisting upon it. activists are insisting, not just Greta Thunberg sitting on your doorstep, activists are insisting on it. And in the EU, there are strong rules. In Brazil, there are strong rules.
Yeah.
Very strong rules. This country's leading the way on this issue.
Richard, we are absolutely thrilled,
Thank you.
happy to have you here. Safe travels. The doors here of CNN Brazil are always wide open for you, Atlanta team, everybody from CNN, and we expect you come back again soon.
And I expect each of you to be on Quest Means Business.
Oh.
Because as we go into this very interesting and difficult year, the expertise of the three of you is so valuable that we need to bring it to our viewers on CNN International More and Quest Means Business. So you're booked. No extra pay, but you are booked.
Okay, we will be
There's
there.
one condition. You come to Brasilia next time.
Okay,
It's a deal.
yes.
That's it. That's it.
It's a
Daniel, obrigado. Thaís, muito obrigado. Richard, thank you so much. Stay with us. E obrigado a você que nos acompanhou aqui no programa Futuro da Economia. Até a próxima.